if I could just give maybe a brief, because I think a lot of Protestants from your audience are going to be exposed to this video, and I think maybe it'd be good to hear like the elevator pitch of like what Orthodoxy is. So I can kind of give that now of just like, the brief history. So obviously, in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus Christ founded one church. He says to Peter, "Upon this rock I will build my church." Not churches, not multiple churches, one church. And so that church was then founded, we believe it in 33 AD at Pentecost. And from there, the apostles, after they reposed, after they died, they appointed their successors. And so we have what's called apostolic succession in the Orthodox Church. In fact, you can Google, just an example, apostolic succession of Antiochian Orthodox, and you'll actually be able to see a by name list dating all the way back to St. Peter. And you can do that for Constantinople. You can do that for Alexandria. So we have apostolic succession dating all the way back to the apostles. We have the writings of the men who actually knew the apostles and were appointed by the apostles. Like St. Ignatius was a disciple of St. John. He was appointed by St. Peter. St. Irenaeus was a disciple of St. Polycarp, who was a disciple of St. John. Now, significantly, St. Polycarp is also from Smyrna, which is one of the only faithful churches in the book of Revelation, if you're familiar. So it's significant that we have the writings of someone like St. Polycarp. Yeah. And so, we have bishop after bishop, and we have their writings, so we can see what the church was teaching, for all these years. And so this really allows us to refute this notion that like the Trinity was invented in 325 by Constantine or something like that. Something nonsensical like that, right? Like we hear that all the time from Muslims, and sometimes I hear similar stuff from even like Protestants, like the Roman Catholic Church was invented, by Constantine. And I know you definitely don't believe that, but some people do believe that. And, so anyways, fast forward to 1054, because at this point, the church has been really one for the first 1,000 years. There was a couple other minor schisms. I don't want to get too into the weeds with that, but the major schism was in 1054 and then culminating in 1285 with the Roman Catholics. And so from there you have the Eastern Orthodox in the East, and then you have the Roman Catholics in the West. And then as we know, we have the Protestant Reformation several hundred years later in the West. But this is something that really attracted to me about Orthodoxy, is that we never had a Protestant Reformation. When I first discovered that, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So they've just been operating like the same, like for the last 1,000 years, and they never had a Reformation. That's really interesting to me. And so, here we are today in the Orthodox Church. We have the same liturgy, which is our form of worship. Our liturgy is from St. John Chrysostom, he's a saint from the 4th, 5th century. Yeah. We still have the liturgy of St. James, the brother of Jesus, which is obviously the oldest liturgy in history. And so we have this continuity, that really can be traced. I mean, it can be verifiably traced back to the 1st century. I think everybody wants to claim to be like the 1st century church, but I think the way the Orthodox Church is unique is we actually have verifiable ways to show that. And I like to point out too, everybody claims the 1st century church, but what about the 2nd century? Because I think a lot of people very quickly will just throw the 2nd century church under the bus. Be like, oh yeah, they lost it. It's like, well, we're not Mormons, right? Like we're not Jehovah's Witnesses, we're not Restorationists. Yeah. Not even Protestants believe that, right? Yeah. The Reformation is not a restoration. Those are very distinct concepts. I like that. And so, even as a Protestant, sometimes they'll be willing, they want to throw that 2nd century or 3rd century church onto the bus. And it's like, well, that's not even what the Reformers taught. They really believe that these fathers, and this is something I encourage every Protestant to do. Go read the Reformers. Go read the Protestant Reformers, because you're going to find that they probably didn't believe what you believe. Like Martin Luther believed in baptismal regeneration. He believed in the sacraments. He believed in the true presence of the Eucharist. He actually even believed in a form of veneration of the saints. And so that when Protestants are just starting to get into this conversation, I really encourage them, read your people. Go read your people. Yeah. Because you're going to find that, gosh, they don't believe what you believe. In a lot of respects. And I think that's something that you're maybe discovering, in your journey. Yeah. Dude, wow. That was a great elevator pitch. I feel like it goes all over the place. You're really good at talking. No, dude. It is something that I've experienced in looking and reading. And
specifically the Eucharist. I grew up in a church, and I love it. It helped me so much, a Baptist church in small town, Georgia. And we did not view communion highly. I even think about, I'm a crier, so I might cry a lot. I love Jesus, and I love this. And I went into a cathedral in York for the first time. And, oh, dude, I'm tearing up because it was beautiful. And it's Anglican. And, you know, maybe I will serve some time in purgatory for admitting this, but I actually took
purgatory doesn't exist
for the Anglicans, for the Catholics. Bad joke. Wrong place. But I took part of the Eucharist, and I wept. I wept. I truly believe I experienced the presence of God. And dude, it sent me down a rabbit hole of, you know, what do I believe and what did my fathers believe? And I'll be transparent with you. I'm very new to this. I'm very, very new. I've only just begun. I would love to act in my life with as much prudence as possible. When I first became a Christian, I was alone, pretty much. I got introduced to Calvinism very quickly. I had a conversation with a friend, and his father came up to me during a dinner and just gave me an elevator pitch of Calvinism. And being impressionable and really anytime I ever heard like someone charismatic and passionate about a statement that seemed true, I was like, okay, that actually kind of makes some sense, you know? And that happened. I became a Calvinist, not really knowing why, but because it gave me a taste, I believe, of the academic, of basically, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but substance in what I believe. Like, gave me a backing of like, okay, so church is more, Jesus is more, theology is more than just pray this prayer. Calvinism was the very first thing, I'm kind of saying this poorly, but Calvinism was the very first thing to ever give me real theology, like an academic taste. So I'm not going to go down that road because I don't want to become too redundant, but I think you get the point now. Then I became very Pentecostal. I swung the pendulum, like hardcore. Like, we're talking Mike Bickle, dispensationalists. Like, I became very, very, very hardcore, you know, eschatology and the maps and the charts because of who I was surrounded by then. Again, I'm young, I'm 22 years old. So 17, I become a Calvinist for about 2 years. And then at 19, I become kind of Pentecostal and charismatic and a dispensationalist. And now, because I've been planted in a local church, a good church with a pastor, with elders, with deacons, in this place, we hold the sacraments very high. We have a liturgy of sorts. We don't have, openly say a liturgy, but we have an order of service, and we're very on time. We hold it to a high standard. We have catechism at my church. We catechize our members. All these things, along with reading about people who have gone before me and researching and seeing churches like this and realizing, wow, like, this is a lot older than me. Like, I'm a part of something a lot bigger. Wow, it's just blown my mind. And it's given me now a deep appreciation for truth in a way that I've never really experienced before. And even my communication of this is messy. Even my communication of my emotions, my experience is just like, you said, all over the place. I feel the same way right now. But I'm okay with that. And I want to make the right decision. I want to go slowly. I want to move as slow as I can in a decision, in believing, in reading. I'm okay with the tension, because one, I believe in the Trinity. I believe in pretty much, I don't think, in my opinion, anything like remarkably heretical, right? I don't practice sin. I pray. I submit to my church. Like, I'm doing the things that I believe a Christian ought to do. So in the midst of that, what I'm trying to say is I'm just not in a rush. And in a conversation like this, like, you're not talking to a Mormon. You're not talking to someone who is anti, anti-Trinity, anti-church. You're not talking to a hyper-individualist. I'm not doing this alone. So whatever that was, I just gave it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think it's good to highlight the distinction between, talking to a Mormon versus talking to a Protestant.
Yeah.
The energy is very different. I think, I talked to you about this on the phone. We do talk about in the Orthodox Church the concept of closeness. There's people that are closer and further from Orthodoxy, right? Like, it's obvious that like a Hindu is further from Orthodoxy than a Protestant. And so the hierarchy would be something like, Eastern Orthodoxy at the top, Oriental Orthodoxy, Roman Catholic, and then Protestant.
Yeah.
And then below that would be all the, heretical sects like, Mormonism and stuff like that.
Great.
So I do think there's a lot that we agree on. Something that I appreciate about you particularly is, that you don't have this, there's not this stigma for you of like, the historical church. I think you are really trying to unpack like, what is the history that's there in the Christian church, and appreciate that for what it is. It's actually crazy. You brought up that your church is trying to do, more liturgical things and catechesis and stuff like that. And I've actually heard buddies who are in Baptist seminaries and like the students are like begging for that. They want, even like in the Baptist circles, you're seeing like, people are wanting like this more traditional thing, like they're starting to read her history and they're starting to be like, this is how Christians worship forever. Yeah. And you brought up the Eucharist. There's a very famous video out there by Francis Chan that I'm sure you've seen, where he talks about, because he went down a similar journey about 4 or 5 years ago. And he was talking about the Eucharist. He was saying something really interesting happened at the Reformation. And it was the Eucharist was replaced by a powerful speaker.
The pulpit.
And by the pulpit, right. And when you read the liturgies, throughout history, when you come to our liturgy, there's something that you'll notice. Our priest isn't even looking at, he isn't even looking at the parishioners. He's looking at the altar throughout pretty much the entire liturgy.
Right.
He'll turn around for about 10 minutes to give a very, very brief homily or teaching. The rest of the liturgy is him humbly facing the altar and worshiping God. And then every week, the liturgy culminates with the Eucharist. And then together, as a church family, we partake in the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And that happens every week. And, I think Francis Chan was onto something there, that there was something at the Reformation that there was an ontological change to the form of worship.
Great.
And it no longer was focused on Christ in the ultimate sense. Obviously, the speakers still talk about Christ.
That's good.
But now the focus is on the speaker rather than the speaker just being a participant in the worship service. And people are starting to notice this. They're starting, even the Protestants are starting to realize this. They're like, oh my gosh, like what happened, in these last couple hundred years that we got away from that?
Dude, yeah. Look, I'm tearing up because it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Man, I love Jesus. Like I'm obsessed with him. Jesus is my love, my life, my everything. And I'm young and I have not a lot of ministry experience, but it does bother me when we idolize and uplift speakers. Being in the world that I am in, we love the influencers. We love the speakers. People will travel across the country to hear a speaker. People are obsessed with certain speakers. And I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. I just want Jesus. And it's really funny. I went to a church, upper room, remarkable worship. I love it. It's awesome. It's long, it's wild, it's crazy, it's awesome. And they did something revolutionary. They took their singers, and usually, you're in a church, they're singing to the crowd, the congregation. Yeah. Upper room does this thing where they turn and they go here. And the singers, they close their eyes and they literally have switched the mics. And it's like a whole thing because they're making a statement like, well, no, this is about Jesus. And the worship there is just remarkable. People are engaged, not with a song, because it's easy to engage in a good song. Yeah. People are truly engaged with the Lord, because their eyes are fixed on heaven, because the people leading them and shepherding them in that moment are fixed on the Lord. But this isn't new. Like Upper Room isn't the first people to do this. Like I went to an Orthodox liturgy once with my good friend Sage, and I cried because the priest, like you said, everyone was just looking to the altar. It was all about Jesus. And the icons help with that as well. It's hard to get distracted and not think about God when like every square inch is God. And
well, we should talk about icons.
Yeah, we can talk about icons. I'd love to. But man, I think it's so important that we keep our eyes on the Lord. Yeah. That's what I appreciate about the Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
That obsession with Christ is so present within the liturgy.
Yeah.
The whole service is geared around the presence of God. The whole service is geared around the altar. And it's something that I long for. It's something that I appreciate so dearly. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, that was when I was kind of, studying Orthodoxy from a Protestant perspective, that was something I quickly realized was that Orthodoxy really is Christianity in its purest form in that sense. Like it's just raw Christianity. And, one of the things I love about iconography is it brings Christianity to life in many ways. One of the reasons for iconography historically was that people were illiterate. I like to challenge a lot of Protestants of like, hey, what would you do if you got to tell like an 8th century person where to go find truth? And it's just a random century. Like we could pick any century. Right. But it's like, where would you tell them to go? And I'll just ask you, where would you tell an 8th century person to go find truth?
To the woods, man. To find it themselves, brother. Yeah. I think about that question. I think it's a really good question.
Yeah.
Where are they at in the world? Are they like what region are they in?
We'll just say they're in the
Europe, Middle East. Great. Then I would tell them to go to an Orthodox church. I would tell them to go. I have no problem with the Orthodox Church, like whatsoever. My friend became an Orthodox believer recently, and I think about him often. I'm like, well, he's just more, he just loves Jesus more now.
Yeah.
Like he just gets now to experience the Lord more authentically. He's more of a Christian now. Like he wants Jesus more now. So I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Dude, I wanted to ask you, so 1054, this is a genuine question. Why do you believe there was a schism?
What do you mean, why do we believe there was a schism?
Not like philosophically. I mean, literally like practically like the schism between the church. Because from my knowledge, I believe it was cultural. Like it was like even the language became different, and the Catholic Church. I'm just going to say Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholics, they became so separated from Byzantine believers, from the Eastern Orthodox Church, and that's why I asked. I was like, well, where are they at? Because I also have a deep appreciation for Catholicism.
Yeah. We would say that the 8th century church in the West was Orthodox.
Great.
So, as far as there was a formal excommunication on both sides in 1054. It really is actually kind of a misunderstanding about that. It really doesn't culminate until the Council of Blachernae in 1285.
Okay.
That's when all 4 patriarchs excommunicate Rome.
Yeah.
In 1054, it was really just Rome and Constantinople.
Yes.
That had a formal excommunication. But so we believe that for the first 1,000 years, the entire West, even though they had the Latin Mass, they had the Western Fathers, and there were those cultural differences. We believe that church was Orthodox.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying like
same church.
Yeah, it's the same church, but I feel like if I would go to an 8th century church in Constantinople, or then I go maybe farther deeper into Europe, like Italy, great. I think the church would be different. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the liturgies were the exact same. But it feels to me like the schism is a result of because the Eastern Orthodox Church, like the Orthodox Church in general, it's so Eastern. Yeah. Like this is such a Middle Eastern place. Like, wow. And then when I go to England, there's there's, cathedrals from the 12th century
Yeah.
there. I'm like, wow, these are so European. And even the way that they operate in the liturgy, it just feels different.
So we even today still have the Latin Mass in our Western Rite parishes.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not that those churches weren't Orthodox. And even like the Filioque doesn't get really dogmatized into the creed until the 1200s.
Okay.
So like really up until then, you're going to be reciting the same creed as those in the East. And that's really, in a fundamental sense, like that is the faith, right?
Right.
Is the creed.
What about the icons?
Yeah.
Because it literally just stepping into, like, why is the Orthodox Church so icon heavy? And I go into a Catholic church, it's not as much.
That actually didn't really happen until several hundred years after the Schism.
Okay.
You can still find like a lot of the Western churches that are pre-Schism look exactly like this. Oh. In fact, I mean, it's crazy how you can, like, we continue to dig up older and older churches, and like there's like 3rd century churches that we're finding that it's like the same style iconography.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. It looks the same thing.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, the icons, for some reason in the West, this actually has happened in every communion other than the Eastern Orthodox for some reason, is they've lost a lot of their iconography tradition.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's some form of judgment or what that is, but it just is what it is. I mean, we're the only ones that have truly preserved. Every Orthodox parish that can possibly afford it is like this.
Yeah.
And this is something that we make a huge priority.
Right.
Because like I was bringing up earlier, I mean, this is how the ancient Christians knew the stories in the Bible. Because think about before the printing press, people didn't have access to the scriptures.
Oh, yeah.
And people think that was like this oppressive thing. Oh, the church didn't let them have access to the scriptures. And that's partially true, but it's really more just that people weren't literate. Like they weren't literate. There was no printing press. So where would they learn about scripture? Well, they would go to liturgy. They would hear the gospel reading. They would hear the epistle, and they would see the biblical stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a tangent, but
no, I love it.
Does that answer your question?
No, it does. It does.
Yeah.
I just wonder where this, like, I wonder when the icon thing for the Catholics, like, when did it drop off? It
was slow. I mean, it was a slow, and you also have different traditions, like within Roman Catholicism. And so, some of them held on to iconography longer than others. And yeah, I mean, it's just not something you see now you go into modern Roman Catholic churches and it's more like statues.
Yeah.
Before I was Orthodox.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah, and actually the Second Council of Nicaea actually prohibits veneration of statues. We don't have a problem with statues themselves. Like, statues are fine, but it's the veneration of them that we prohibit in the Orthodox Church.
Why is that?
It's because it's supposed to be one step away from like reality. So like you and I are like 3D. So it's in order for it to be because we see them as windows into heaven.
Great.
Right. So what is a window? Window is, it's not 3-dimensional. Right. So it's the same way. So when we are looking at these icons, we are literally looking into heaven.
That's great. I love that explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the statue, it for us, it just has a little bit too much of like a pagan, pagan implications to it, and and so that's why the Second Council of Nicaea. But that's the reasoning it gives is for it to be one step away from us as live human beings.
When was the Second Council of Nicaea?
787.
787.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's we can get into like the ecumenical councils and stuff, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the Second Council of Nicaea was the sealing of the 7 ecumenical councils, and it just happened to be that the first Council of Nicaea was the first, and the Second Council of Nicaea was the last. And then 7, as you know, is that's a number meaning completion.
Yeah.
Right. Now in the Roman Catholics, they have over 20 ecumenical councils now, quote unquote. For us, it's still the same 7.
Great.
Yeah.
That's super cool, man.